Greetings from Toronto, and welcome to Virginia's virtual review of The Horseman's Grave by Jacqueline Baker. The Horseman's Grave is set in the scorched farmland of Sand Hills on the Saskatchewan-Alberta border, centered around the Schaff family, who have a tragedy befall their only son at a very young age. He's run over by a wagon wheel. And the outcome of that is that he grows up as a very protected, reclusive sort of boy. Along the way, his life becomes entwined with the Krause family. The Krause family is universally viewed as the pariahs of the German community in southern Saskatchewan. It's a farmsteading community. It's a very small community, so everybody knows everybody's business. And the Krauses have a reputation for being evil in the blood, for lack of better words. Along the way, a new character is introduced into everybody's lives when Leo Krause, who is the second generation of Krauses in the story, goes and finds a wife, brings her back to the community, and also brings her young daughter, Elizabeth, to the community. Elizabeth is a very bewitching, beguiling, and very unnerving character, and really takes the boy in the story by storm. He really becomes obsessed with her, as does the hired man, Lathius, in the story, and it's the outcome of their obsession with her and the turn of events that happens because of her that really becomes the key story and climax of the book. The setting itself, Sand Hills in southern Saskatchewan, is the setting for Jacqueline Baker herself. She grew up in Saskatchewan. She comes from Russian-German roots, and she was quite fascinated by the stories around the history of the Russo-German group that settled in Saskatchewan in the early days of the 1900s. The homesteading life itself was very harsh. It was a tough life, and Jacqueline Baker wanted to learn more about it. She did quite a bit of research on the homesteading life for her first book, which was A Hard Witching and Other Stories, which garnered great reviews. Horseman's Grave is her second book. The homesteading life itself is beautifully captured in the book, in my opinion. You really get a sense for the imagery of what it would have been like to be living there, and also the harsh times, how hard it was for these people to just make a go of it, let alone all the intrigue in the community. Let's talk a little bit about Jacqueline Baker herself. Jacqueline Baker is 41 or 42 now. This is, as I said, her second novel, and I found an article on Quill and Quote, which was an interview with her. It kind of expresses how she feels about the story, and this is what it says. When she was a young girl, Jacqueline Baker found in her grandparents' attic a booklet on witchcraft filled with handy pastimes like casting spells. She was riveted. Then it disappeared, though hardly by any supernatural means. Her mother, who opposed Jacqueline's penchant for the macabre, likely pinched it. With her youthful charm and studded nose, you'd hardly believe Baker turned 40 this year. Her drive to write carried her through a childhood in small towns with no libraries and some bleak 20s angst poetry. The Horseman's Grave may reward all with a new, wider readership. In The Horseman's Grave, she set out to capture the taste of wind-borne grip and our fear of the dark. This despite 2 false starts and a miserable writing regimen that involved tiptoeing to her computer at 4:30 in the morning so as not to wake her 2 daughters. Sometimes she'd pull a ball cap low and take her laptop to a cafe in Valemont, but she was often thwarted by the turnstile of greetings from her neighbors. It had taken Baker years to summon the courage to quit stalling and start writing for real. After parlaying her Canadian funeral news experience into a Kentucky-based communications job for the Lowen Group Funeral Home, she realized she hated PR but loved Southern American writers. She quit her job and pursued creative writing at Northern Kentucky University. She completed her BA at the University of Victoria, where she met her husband, John, proceeded to graduate work at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, where she found a mentor in the novelist Greg Hollingshead. HarperCollins has high hopes for The Horseman's Grave, the first in a 2-book contract for Baker. Generally speaking, I thought the book was fantastic. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was well written, and especially the character interplay between the story. It's kind of fascinating because they're very muted interplay between the characters. There's nothing, in the dialogue that is potentially explosive or crazy, though what you find out about the characters certainly is. It's muted dialogue, but it really suits the characters, and you do find a great deal about them through the way the dialogue is presented. I found the novel to be maybe a bit long in parts. I think perhaps it could have been tightened up a bit, but overall the story was very well told. I like the fact that they don't tie everything up in a neat little bow at the end, that there are a lot of unanswered stories about what happens at the end that come up through your imagination. You create part of the story through these open ties that are never really closed within the story, especially at the end when you have so many people who leave the community because of what has happened in the climax, and you're really left to wonder, what's the next chapter in their lives. I thought it was very well written, and very, very good imagery within the book, as I mentioned before. You really do get a sense for the community and the landscape and how tough it was to live there. So overall, I give this book an 8 out of 10. I miss you all. I hope you're all doing very well, and I look forward to next month's review. Bye for now.